Welcome, very much welcome to the Idaho Technology Council Tech2Market, first in a restart of our events. Feel free in the chat to enter your name and email address in an attempt to virtualize a meet and greet as if we were in person. We have this scheduled for an hour and a half, but we believe we can get through it in just about an hour, maybe under. We're going to start out with this welcome and introduction, a little bit about Tech2Market and ITC. Yes, the ITC. As you can tell, I'm getting nervous and excited. And then we'll go into a pre-recorded presentation of our special guest, Nick, from PharmaWatch. And then we'll close out, we'll have question and answers afterwards and close out with an introduction to what's next. And that's why we're happy that Teresa and Dana are online.
That's right.
So we are here with Tech2Market to create continual connection points and education points for entrepreneurs, the startup community, capital providers, and economic resources. That is fundamentally just the core to Tech2Market. And since we have Jay, would you like to say a few words about the ITC?
Yeah, love to on that, Kaz and Eric. Thanks so much. You know, the Tech2Market is such a big thing for. I've said we've had well over 20 focus groups, and the first 7 that we did throughout the state had identified that commercialization and getting ideas to the marketplace off of the new products and services to the market were just some of the most critical things the ITC could focus on. So yesterday we did a deal where we just had an Innovation Matters podcast that we put out yesterday, and on it we had Jeff Walker was on the call with us, and Jeff and Julie Roberts Elliott. Jeff's with Access Idaho and Julie is with Intuit. And they both talked about things that really inspired them to be able, things they wanted to connect with to be able to help people in their community and in Idaho. And as we look at commercialization as being a big thing, I really wanted to, also call out Derek and Kaz, because both of these guys I've known for years, and they both have worked very hard on a variety of initiatives and projects and growing companies and entrepreneurialism. And that's the type of energy that is required for us to be able to keep and have Idaho be one of the most innovative states in the union. So seriously, this is kind of one of the biggest things we have, because and the last point about this is that as we did the Idaho Knowledge Report will be published on Monday. And in that report, one of the biggest things, and Teresa and Dana know this, that one of the biggest areas of focus that everybody seemed to have in all the 6 economic regions was the ability to be able to help entrepreneurialism grow, so they could have people that were taking risks to be able to help start companies and organizations. And as PharmaWatch, one of the biggest things that took place there is watching people like Ray Sasso come in and, the work that he did to be able to help get Micron off the ground, as he worked with J.R. Simplot and Scott Simplot to make that happen, which was critical. And then to be able to see him come into an area that he didn't really have expertise in, but he had entrepreneurial know-how and drive, and he was able to bring together a really good team to be able to do the things he's done. So these are the things that we need to do, and that's what really focused on as we look at Tech2Market. So Kaz and Derek, you guys, I'm really liking this reset and the energy and the direction you guys are having this on a statewide focus too. So thanks.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you very much. And silly me, I missed part of my script.
Oh, no.
Section of it. I'm here this morning with the fantastic, fantabulous Derek Ellis, who's CEO of SM Heuristics, who is hosting us today, by the way.
And I'm here with the amazing and fantastic Kaz Lawler from Emerson, and a longtime friend of mine.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And we're joined by
Nick.
You want to do the intros?
Nick Ioli from PharmaWatch.
Yeah,
COO of PharmaWatch, but I'll talk a little bit more about Nick here in a moment.
that's right.
Yeah, welcome, Nick. This is awesome. Excited about this.
Thanks, happy to be here.
Excellent. So I want to talk about Tech2Market Reimagined. Again, Jay, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for bringing Kaz and I together on this, and then bringing us all together on this topic. So Tech2Market Reimagined for us, we've been spending time together. We've been doing a lot of getting ready and a lot of interviews and bringing conversations together to understand how we can reimagine Tech2Market. And so a part of that reimagining is and the outcomes of those conversations is really bringing everybody together from region to region across the state. So our focus is bringing relationships and resources together across Idaho, and we're going to do that through quarterly events. We're going to do that through quarterly workshops and focus meetings, a myriad of different ways. And we have a roadmap that we'll be sharing with everybody. So that also includes road trips, and we're going to be spotlighting a lot of cool companies, companies with a focus from ideation, small or large, all the way through commercialization.
Absolutely.
So, you know, to be a success down this path, we need strong partnerships and friends to help us along the way. We have regional leaders and regional entrepreneurs that are stepping in to help us do this. And we also have strong partnerships, like our partnership with Troxel. And I believe we probably have Steve Frisco on the line. If so, Steve, would you mind hopping on and saying a few words?
I don't see Steve.
I don't see Steve.
I don't see Steve.
I'm going to be Steve.
You're going to be Steve?
We will offer locations and donuts and other resources across the state.
And coffee.
And coffee when we're all able to get back together and do those things. So it'll be very exciting. But friends like Troxel are coming in, giving us locations and benefits that will be very helpful. They're giving us help with that reach we need in order to work with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. And as Derek was mentioning, part of what we're doing with Troxel is helping coordinate and facilitate these regional events. So our overall structure we're looking at is quarterly we'll have main events like this where we talk about a major topic on the path from ideation and technology through to commercialization, followed the following month by regional focus groups. And I'm calling them focus groups now because we're not actually in person. Our end goal is to have actual regional meetups where folks, entrepreneurs, all those who contribute, everything along the stage to commercialization, small, medium-sized businesses, funding opportunities, et cetera, where we can do a meet and greet so that people can learn and learn more about what resources are available across the state of Idaho. That is our main focus. So today, I'm trying to remember what's next on our list. Today we're talking with Nick, and in our next meeting, which we'll talk more about afterwards, next month we're reaching out to our regions 5 and 6, which is why we're happy Teresa and Dana are here, to talk about some funding opportunities and some of their organizations that support, some of the organizations in those regions and resources that support entrepreneurs, small, medium-sized businesses, that journey from idea to commercialization. Following that, we're going to be looking at another segment of that path with incubators and other resources across the state.
And with the ultimate goal of success for entrepreneurs and the growth of
That's right.
for the makers in Idaho, right?
That's right. They're not alone, and we have resources. Idaho is a fantastic state.
That's right. So if we can aggregate those resources, hopefully we'll accomplish our goals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, I want to introduce Nick, the COO of PharmaWatch. I'm gonna talk with you briefly about PharmaWatch, give you a quick high-level overview of PharmaWatch, and then we're gonna jump into a video. We've been spending time with Nick over the past weeks, and
he's still sitting with us.
Still sitting with us, and he's gonna be here after the video for questions, and he'll have answers.
We'll see how it goes.
So
We'll find what goes on behind the scenes.
PharmaWatch started in 2011. The story of PharmaWatch begins with two friends over coffee talking about the failures of data tracking for drug trials. Ray Sasso and four founders then started the company, and you fast forward to today, and PharmaWatch has grown and become a state-of-the-art compliance reporting system for healthcare facilities across the U.S. They've had tons of traction. They're doing really well. They're so well known for their support and their products and their quality control. It's just really exciting. Nick, who joins us today, is the COO, and he's been with PharmaWatch since the beginning. How they went from 5 employees to where they are today will sort of be covered in this video. And save your questions for Nick. So we're gonna hit start, and away we go.
Well, I'm going to figure out how we can start,
We're
and then
probably
we're going to go.
Donuts.
Yeah. So let's trigger this up, go full screen, and let's play. So we are here today at PharmaWatch, right above SM Heuristics, and we're talking with Nick. How did you find yourself here?
Very long story, but I guess we'll condense it. So I actually didn't anticipate being in tech. So I went to school for forestry and natural resources. I wanted to work outdoors, and probably for the Forest Service or something like that. But I found myself when I grew up tinkering with like computers a lot. I built my own computers, mostly for gaming and such. And so I've always kind of had a fascination with like electronics and I'm a hardware junkie. So that kind of came into play obviously for PharmaWatch. But so in college, I really wanted to work remotely. And I knew that, okay, like forestry, remote work, those aren't really going to go hand in hand. And so I started to pick up some pharmaceutical regulatory from family and friends who were in the industry and kind of like showed me the ins and outs and said, look, you can make money working remotely doing this. And so I started doing that in college. After college, I was like, time to work remotely. And so I went to Costa Rica, and that's actually where I was introduced to PharmaWatch, or American Pharma, through my father, who said, hey, look, there's this little tech company in Idaho. They can't really afford me, but you're kind of a good entry level for them to work with. And so I was introduced to Ray, and I started basically helping advise on just like some of the real minor software design and like tweaks to make the system compliant with regulatory requirements. And eventually, as time goes, I was working in Costa Rica. I took on a couple other roles at the company. Things like managing the document management system, some HR stuff, developing processes. I was always process driven, so I was always like drawn to that. And eventually, our CEO, Ray Sasso, said, you've been with us a while. You've done a lot of good. Do you want to step up to COO? So that's why I'm here.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks.
SM Heuristics, we've had the privilege of being your neighbor. We work with you. And it's just been an exciting time watching what's happening with PharmaWatch. It's timely. I know you guys have been around for 8 years plus. Tell me a little bit about where you guys came from and go from there.
Sure. So I'm actually not one of the founders, but there were 4 founders initially. And the company was formed with the merge of 3 separate companies. I'm forgetting the name of the first 2, but the main one was Insight. And, the idea originated from actually like most of our ideas at this company, a chat at the YMCA between Ray and Gene, who happens to also be my father. And, the idea was, the current standards for monitoring pharmaceuticals, whether they're, during the manufacturing process, transport, or point of use, it's subpar. So there's not enough monitoring occurring during the cold storage life cycles of pharmaceutical products. And so, they looked at the regulations that were, current regulations, current monitoring systems out there, things like, literally mercury thermometers and data loggers, and said, that's insufficient, we can do better, and started American Pharma Technologies, and PharmaWatch is the product.
Okay.
With Tech2Market, we are looking at and investigating, how we're here to help Idaho identify resources, the small, medium-sized startup businesses, identify resources in order to make that transition from ideation through a bunch of different stages to commercialization.
Sure.
So for you and for I guess it's the PharmaWatch product, how do you see, how have you viewed, how would you summarize that transition, the journey? What does the journey look like to you, to American Pharmaceutical?
Great question, and through a lot of failure. We failed a lot.
Success through failure.
Yeah, early on, we had so many attempts at going to market through different channels with different technologies, different pricing structures, and we just failed our way through it. We were very cutting edge, and so we didn't really have a lot to rely on in terms of like industry standards or anything we could kind of like copy, right, to get started. And so we built it all ourselves, and of course failed a lot. So early on we did things like, okay, how are we going to sell it? Is it through partners? Is it through strategic associates? Is it through direct sale? Is it through some distribution networks? And we went through every one of those before we landed where we are now, and all of those failed. So simple things like transitioning from what the industry would call a hardware-centric model. We went for a solution-based model. We knew we were going to be there out of the gate. We said, okay, this is where we want to land. But for a long time, we teetered between, do we try and match the industry because that's how it's being marketed, or do we stick to our okay, we're going to be a solution. We're always going to sell it this way. It's always going to be in this package. And so we failed for a lot of that term until we settled on, we can do it the solution-based way. We want to stick to this. And it's really worked out now that we've kind of stuck to our guns and have something that's working.
I want to explore this a little bit more. As we talk about validating the market and how the product changes over time, talk about the evolution of the product line and the problem it really solves for healthcare companies, pharmaceuticals, and labs.
Sure. So, as I said, we came into the industry with a very cutting edge option. So real-time temperature monitoring of any cold storage critical product was very much isolated to lab environments when we came into the industry. So lab environments that were research oriented or storing collegiate materials for biolabs. So real-time hadn't really hit the healthcare industry yet. And so, we kind of started with, okay, we want to do a real-time option. We think it's important, but we had to match some of what the existing technologies were doing. So data loggers, for example. Data loggers were sampling data and storing that data retained on the device until you plug it into a computer, you get the data off it. We said, okay, that's great, but we can upload that data to the cloud over Wi-Fi. That makes it easier for everybody, and we can do it in real time. So instead of a bulk upload, we're doing it every 5 minutes. So that was kind of the first major step of okay, we're going to be real time and we're going to market it that way. And we think we can do it in a way that's a lot simpler than the real time options were in lab environments. So for example, let's see, this was our first sensor. So this is Sentinel Pro 2. So we worked with a vendor initially that would help us with manufacture of hardware. This was used a lithium-ion battery, so it didn't have AC power. It was just rechargeable, and it was supposed to last 1 to 3 years. We learned very quickly that with the real-time requirements we were demanding from it, the lifespan wasn't perfect, and so we iterated. We've got the next model up was the Sentinel Next, again sourced through a vendor, which is now Argus Labs. But this was our first AC powered device. So this was wall powered. It still transmitted data every 5 minutes over Wi-Fi. But this is kind of the first, I guess, widely deployed unit for us. These were kind of like a beta stage. We had like a few clients at this point, but we were really just like piloting the system and making sure that, like real time was the way we wanted to go, and our pricing structures and such were aligned. But this was widely deployed. And this is kind of where we learned that Wi-Fi for data backhaul is not the best technology. It does work, but it's client dependent. The client has to keep the network up. They have their individual IT requirements, etc. And as you know now, if you try to get on a hospital's Wi-Fi, you've got to accept 80 different terms and conditions. And you can imagine what we have to do if we're transmitting data on 800, 1,000 devices. We have to work with IT extensively. So this is where we learned that lesson. And of course, we said, okay, how do we get off Wi-Fi networks? And so while this was going, we had another model, which is this one here. This is kind of the same version with a display. The display requirement is something that, we've kind of push-pulled with regulatory agencies on for a while. This is actually a requirement in a lot of regulatory environments. And so we added it to the sensor, but we've since taken it away because we've actually come up with newer technologies, which I'll get into in a moment. But this is, just an upgraded model of the same. But this is our new device, and this is completely manufactured in-house here in Idaho. So this was designed and developed by our engineering staff. They did a fantastic job of basically taking our learnings from these devices, both the learnings we had through their vendor, but also with the direct use of it. And we put all those learnings into our own hardware. So we developed everything from the board, the case, to the firmware involved in this device. And it's actually one of the industry's first, or is the industry's first, Cat1M cellular device. So no longer uses Wi-Fi. It transmits directly to the cloud over a Cat1M signal, which has that cool IoT, catchphrase to it. But it really is IoT. So it communicates machine to machine over the cloud.
That's awesome. That's really cool. It's made in Idaho.
Yeah,
Made and manufactured right next door. Yep.
How, as you guys have gained traction, and I'll ask about 2020 next.
Oh yeah, sure.
But as you've gained traction, how has Idaho impacted you positively around commercialization? What unique attributes has Boise or Idaho paid, positive gains for you?
Our first office, our first foray into office space was really advantageous for us. In a lot of other environments, one, we probably couldn't afford office space. And two, we couldn't afford office space in a central area like downtown Boise. Our early clientele, like St. Luke's, St. Al's, they're all located downtown. Their headquarters are down here. Their IT staff are located down here. And so being able to afford and have space in this central area has been super beneficial. We've also found, because it's a smaller tech community, it's a lot more tight-knit. So the connections that we've made here locally for, engineering assistance, marketing assistance through SMH, not only are they strong connections, but it feels more intimate than trying to source that type of help in a huge, like Silicon Valley. I've worked for other companies based out of Silicon Valley, and it's a totally different vibe. It's aggressive, it's fast paced, it's, cash driven. We're bootstrapped. We haven't taken any funding other than a very small Series A. But because of that, we felt that Idaho's given us a really nice incubator environment that's not rushed, it's not pressured, it's not consistent with what you'd see in other larger environments.
That's great.
Yeah, how did you find out about the resources available to the small startups?
Through some mainstream companies like Trailhead, but also, just casual conversations. Because we were, located downtown, literally our first office was on 8th Street, we were able to, go down to the coffee shop and meet some, really influential and again, a tight-knit group. And so coffee shop conversations, as I mentioned earlier, meeting people at the YMCA. Everybody's here. They're all in one space, and so and everybody's friendly. Everybody's got a really open willingness to work together. So that's been really cool.
That is cool. The notorious YMCA locker room negotiations.
It
happens.
Most of our hiring has happened at the YMCA. So, not in the locker room, but yeah.
Let's talk about this last year, 2020.
Sure.
How has that impacted PharmaWatch, and positive or negative even?
Sure. So out of the gate, after we got into the COVID environment, we kind of did what every other company did, which was brace for the worst. We did go through the PPP loan program and got ready to pay our staff in continuity. And then we did some, not downsizing, but cutting back. So we cut our office meal program a little bit, cut some of the technology requirements around the office, and then, dialed back some hours here and there just to brace for it. But we didn't really anticipate early on in the COVID world that, the vaccine was going to come quickly. As soon as we got wind that the vaccine was coming down the pipe, we realized we're in the perfect position. We're the only real-time option out there that can do ultra-cold environments, which was a requirement for the Pfizer vaccine. And we had more experience than anyone in quickly deploying into, new vaccine storage environments. So, for example, at this point, or in 2020, we had already been working with the Idaho immunization program for their VFC program, Vaccines for Children, and we had a ton of experience with them. We were already monitoring the entire state of Arkansas, every vaccine and immunization in Arkansas. And so we had all this experience, and we leveraged it into a new version of our product, which was PharmaWatch COVID, specifically built for monitoring COVID vaccines. It comes pre-programmed. It comes able to be deployed very rapidly, and it comes already meeting all the requirements of whatever agency might be auditing these sites as the COVID vaccines are rolled out. So it really came as plug and play as we could make it, and that's really attractive to anybody who is getting vaccines for the first time, or might have been dealing with immunizations, but is now getting this ultra critical vaccine and doesn't know what to do with it. We know, we've been doing it, and we were able to advise them on that.
That's great.
So we have talked about the innovation and the development process, and a tip, I think we've dipped into commercialization a little. I'd like to go into commercialization a little more.
Yeah.
How is that journey for you? You've talked about being in Arkansas. How'd you get to Arkansas from Idaho?
Sure.
Or Costa Rica, for that matter?
Yeah, for sure.
How do we get back?
Right? Tell me about it. So I guess, I mentioned earlier that we failed a lot. We mostly failed on the business development front. We have the best engineers, I'll say it, in Idaho. Sorry, Micron. But we have we have great engineers. So they built a quality product out of the gate. We have one of the most talented programmers in the country, our CTO, Casey Harris. So we had a lot of engineering and development horsepower, but zero business development experience. And so obviously we looked for experts, and we had a lot of folks that we brought on early on that had big business, sales experience, marketing experience, but not true startup business development experience. And I think that was where we failed the most early on. For the first few years, we really tried hard to find a partner to sell our product. We've got this great product. We're piloting it in these environments. Look at it; it looks great. And we've struggled to attract a quality partner on that front. This is over years, right? After that, we said, okay, we've got to dive into direct sales. We've got to try this. But of course, we're starting from scratch on the direct sales front. So we've got the pilot. We failed with partners. And on the direct sales front, none of us have experience. So again, we looked to outside hires, failed through a couple to put together a sales process. But eventually, we started to make the progress that we needed. So we started to nail down things like price sensitivity in the market. Our solution packaging had to fit into some of the pricing models that our clients weren't used to, and so we got good at those conversations. Then we hired a couple salespeople, built a CRM, and this is again over years, but we've kind of we went through all of those stages in a way where we really had to rely on our internal experience. That's what it kind of came down to. And instead of, using outside resources, we just made folks here wear different caps until it got done. And it worked. I mean, it really does. Like if you have quality people, they'll jump into something, even if they fail, they'll try again. And that's what got us through it. And so today, now we have a quality sales staff. We have really robust sales processes. Our pricing's dialed, our competitive strategies. We've got competitive kill sheets, and it's really gotten mature quickly after we got our feet under us.
So it's typically very difficult to sell into the healthcare industry.
Yeah.
It takes time, and it takes time to build trust. Once you've built trust with some healthcare providers, what are your hooks? How are you able to expand within their system or into other systems?
Sure. Honestly, we always come at sales with a we want to help approach, right? So we're not an aggressive like Wall Street style, like, all right, you better buy PharmaWatch and here's all the reasons why and here's our features. It's more, we're here to help. We think you should take a look at this because it's going to help you through a better, a safer and more compliant environment. And look at your colleagues that are using our product. We've really benefited from really quality referrals. In the life of the company, we've never lost a client. We have a huge referral base. They all have had a great experience. We check in with them consistently to make sure they're still having a good time with us. And that's really benefited our forward sales progress in not only add-on business for their accounts, but also for referrals. Healthcare across the country is a tight-knit environment. Everybody knows everybody. People move around, and we've actually had a lot of sales happen through just our referral program.
That's perfect.
Yeah, out of curiosity, we've talked about the idea, the innovation, the manufacturing, commercialization. And over the years, have you used any of the in-town support organizations like the Department of Commerce or the university down here? They've got the business school, engineering school. Any programs?
Yeah, definitely. So,
Trailhead.
Yeah, Trailhead. Yeah, so one of our board members early on was director of the executive MBA program at Boise State, and so we leveraged that a bit to find some talent through their program. We've also used obviously SM Heuristics marketing support as well, and we've also, because we're bootstrapped, we don't have the luxury of spending a lot of cash. But we have found that, local companies are willing to kind of, run riskier pricing and programs with us because there's this local trust, right? So they're willing to offer more performance-based compensation or incentives that we can work with. So, again, I think the local support's there. You just gotta find it, and there's some great places to find it now.
So that's a good question. Where do you recommend people find these resources?
Trailhead.
Other than the YMCA locker room.
Right. Yeah.
Which works.
I was going to say, go work out at the Y. But,
Yeah.
Again, Trailhead's great. The local, I'm blanking on it. Yeah, I know.
The EMBA program.
EMBA program. I'll answer this question better, I'm sure. But honestly, we haven't used a ton outside of the random connections. I'm kind of huh.
Well, it's all 1 degree of separation here.
Yeah.
So
It is.
really
It's crazy. You can find the same people, working at Trailhead as you can find Thomas Hammer Coffee, or what was Thomas Hammer Coffee.
Yeah, if you can ask the right question and sit down for a coffee, you you can. Yeah,
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
that's right.
I do find it interesting. It seems more common than not that in hardware, firmware, software development, startups tend to have developed those things internally and leverage off of experience versus bringing in university assistants in that front. In the early days we used Tech Up. That's how I met Steve Hatt. developed. They did SLA, stereolithography parts for us
Oh, interesting.
for the early devices. But now looks like you just buy an enclosure.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's 38 different components manufactured by 38 different vendors, and we've got to manage all that and compile it. So yeah, it's I will say one of the things that's been kind of interesting for me, just going through the stages to commercialization, has been some of the software tools that are available now to companies our size that allow us to operate like a big company and quickly with minimal staff. For example, we leverage things out of the gate like Zendesk was one of the first major programs we put in place, and we were literally in a pilot program for them. They were like, "You're a small healthcare startup. Oh my God, come here! Tell us how you're using our product. Help us build add-ons." But we've grown with them, and I mean, we couldn't do half of half the quality of support that we're offering without that program and its capabilities. And we've done that on all of our other operational fronts. Our billing software with QuickBooks, our project management and software roadmap through Monday.com and Jira. There's all of these suites of software that are modestly priced, and when you put them in place the right way, you execute. They work fantastically. They really can keep you running without a huge cash spend or hiring.
So prior to last year, when we were generally out and about, there are a couple organizations in town like Boise Engineers meetups and things like that. Were you guys involved in any of those meetups?
Not
for
directly.
Software or hardware?
Yeah, not directly, but we do have a couple of our sales staff who are part of the BYP program, Boise Young Professionals.
Nice.
And that's been a great networking group. We've actually explored a couple like marketing companies here locally that do, I think one of them recently we talked to does surveys for healthcare professionals. And so, we're trying to get some symbiotic relationship going there. We may still. There are some organizations out there that we have started to leverage, but we're growing quickly, and as we get people, we get more exposure to those local programs, and I'm sure we'll get a lot more quickly as we grow. So,
and so growing quickly, you've expanded outside of Costa Rica. You've expanded outside of Idaho.
Yeah.
And Arkansas. You went to Arkansas. Are you? I assume. So have you plans to expand internationally? And if so, how's that going?
We don't have any immediate plans to, mostly because our initiative right now is to saturate other verticals domestically. So, yes, we monitor, vaccines, immunizations, other pharmaceutical products in hospitals and clinics, but actually some of our biggest clientele are some of the most mission critical in the world. And we've just recently pivoted into those environments because we saw, again, another need for a simplified approach to getting this data out of, any critical environment. So, for example, we now monitor the largest biorepositories in the U.S. And actually one of the largest in the world. So we monitor California Cryobank, which has, extremely critical fertility materials, research materials, some specimens of, biolife that are irreplaceable. We also monitor the cord blood registry in Arizona, which is the largest single repository of cord blood in the world. And we just recently have started monitoring the largest IVF network in the US. So long-winded way of saying we're pivoting into other verticals before we go international, but I do suspect at some point, we'll saturate these other industries, other verticals, and need to move, overseas.
That's amazing. As you go into these other states, how are you finding their openness, not only in the community but on the state level itself? How's that working for you?
Honestly, really well. So a lot of folks have heard of Boise. A lot of folks obviously have worked with companies from Idaho. But I think a lot of our competition's based on like the East Coast, West Coast, and in some of these like major tech sectors. And so working with a company like ours has been really refreshing. They're used to poor levels of support from some of these other companies. A a lot of, again, some of the factors that we talked about earlier, like in Silicon Valley or some of the East Coast incubator environments, they just push small companies too far too fast. And in healthcare, they don't like that. I mean, like most healthcare professionals are like, okay, I want something reliable that works, and I want a lot of support. Like I want somebody to talk to. And we've really been able to provide that consistently. And so I think honestly at this point, like saying we're from Boise and we have like our support staff is based here and we manufacture here has been a huge advantage. There's a lot more willingness to work with us just on, you know, the context of like, okay, if everybody's there and, you know, you're in this nice, I don't want to call it a small town, but, you know, this
Burgeoning metropolis.
Burgeoning metropolis, thank you. You know, they're willing to work with us, and it's an advantage.
Yeah, that's curious. Other folks wanting to sell medical devices, are there any gaps that you can close for them on the path to commercialization?
You know, I would say, I mean, specific to that niche, you know, the sales cycle in healthcare is long, and that's to be expected. So I wouldn't get discouraged. You know, a lot of our sales have taken 2 years. We had one recently closed after 5 years. And so it's slow going, but it's really rewarding. So, you know, if you do push through that longer sales cycle, you push through the barriers that you see in those environments, you know, whether they're technology or administrative or you know, whatever it is, it can be very rewarding to help in that community because you're helping directly. You know, you can see the result. We've definitely seen that.
How about advice just in general for those in various stages of the technology ideation to commercialization process? What advice would you give those just starting out?
You know, I would say, and this sounds generic, I don't even want to say it, but it's all about the people. You know, the people that we've hired, you know, and you know, we've hired and fired like everybody has, but our core staff is a tribe, and that tribal mentality can get you through anything. You know, you can ask somebody to pick up something that you never ask, you know, hell, your family member to pick up, and they'll do it. You know, they'll push through the hard times, and you know, you can reward them in the good. And so it really is all about finding the right folks who are willing to stick through the startup phase and who enjoy it. You know, like there's a lot of people out there who, you know, might be grinding away at a corporate job, but they're an entrepreneur. And if you find that person and you hire them, you give them, you know, the path and the opportunity to grow, they'll do it and they'll astonish you, and you know, you'll make it. So.
To follow on that question, how many people have you sourced from Idaho versus
Costa Rica?
Yeah, Costa Rica. Pretty much all of them. So we have had a couple hires from the West Coast, but most of those are friends and family. So we did a lot of friends and family hires early on, but obviously we've outgrown that. And so everybody's local that we've hired recently, and you know, they're either you know, headed back to Idaho for some reason, or you know, we're just
for every reason.
For all reasons, yeah. But yeah, I mean, everyone we've hired has been local.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Now let's talk about your board.
Sure.
As you're cruising around downtown, how hard is that?
Oh, the hoverboard or the one wheel.
The one wheel.
The one wheel.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, nice.
Have you been on a one wheel?
I have not.
Either way.
Talk about failure. There's been a lot of failures on that. Yeah, I'm sure like half the people watching this have seen me like crash on State Street or something. But yeah, no significant injury, but it's a nice way of getting around. So there's that one.
Yeah, the
Sentinel. That's the Sentinel Pro
next
2.
interview for sure.
This is the first Sentinel Next with no display. Here's our first boxed product. And actually, the boxes are from a Boise or Idaho-based company as well. So that's the Sentinel Next version 2.
So what's in the box?
Yeah, what's in the box? Then there's that's our IoT, our newest version. Yeah. Cool.
Well, great. Thanks for
Thank
spending
you so
some time
much.
with us.
No problem. Yeah, happy to.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
You have anything else, Gaz?
Oh, good. Yeah, we need to do the snap, right? Yeah. We need the official snap. Oh,
Mr.
sure.
Nick.
All right.
Yay!
That's a
Is that
take.
good enough snap?
Okay, go ahead whenever.
Make sure you edit my family.
Okay.
figure this out.
We're gonna figure out how to get back to the
Yeah, our slide deck, which might be there. All right, hang on.
hold for just a second.
Technical difficulties. I see that we are closing in on that hour. So as we are getting our slide deck back up and running, and we're closing in on the hour.
That was a cool experience.
Yeah.
It was really nice sitting down and talking with Nick, and those are the gems that you look for when you're trying to start or grow a company. It's priceless, and when you're looking for economies of scale, when you don't have as many resources, because you're self-funded, I mean that's everything. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. I'm happy you spent the time with us.
Yeah, appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I got a quick question because this is one, and there's two really quick ones. One is that, are those real maple bars and stuff like that on your table there?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, Derek, that's a still.
Okay, that is from DK Donuts.
Oh my goodness, those are great. Those are awesome. So, hey Nick, that was wonderful. But so this is a big thing, I've known Ray for years, and it's probably been almost 30 years I've known Ray. And one of his biggest things that, as you talked about what you said, I would love to be able to see, and one of his big points is always about differentiation, right? So you get a product, you want to make sure a product that you get could possibly will be different than your competitor. It's going to be enhanced, or it's going to be, there's going to be something there that's going to be really make that much more unique or better. From the time you started, I love seeing all the product evolution. What do you think is the top two differentiation points that you're having for PharmaWatch, the product?
Most recently, I guess through the product life cycle, just the infrastructure for getting the data to the cloud. When we first started, to get that type of data out to a web-based cloud, that was like when the cloud was a new thing, right? But the infrastructure requirements that our competitors had were extreme. So they would have a sensor reporting to an access point, reporting to an aggregator, reporting to an on-site server, then that server would push the data to the cloud. The early hardware design, to get that data directly from one device out to a cloud-based environment, that was huge. That's a huge differentiator. And the second one was definitely the software. So our software was highly innovative. It was compliant, which was really big. I know there was a question in chat about, was there regulatory compliance hurdles to overcome? Absolutely, in the software side. So most of the regulatory environments that we stepped into are involved in were used to legacy technologies. And so the regulations were worded in a way where, the legacy technologies were compliant out of the box. And so we had to incorporate that into the software design to make sure that we could check those regulatory checkboxes, but with a real-time system instead of some of those older technologies. So those would be the two biggest differentiators for sure.
That's great. And I'll just ask, did you grow up here in Idaho?
No, actually, Southern California, and then I went to school in San Luis Obispo, and then from there down to Costa Rica.
So how did you end up in Idaho?
Family. So as I mentioned, Gene, one of the founders, he was living out in actually Star, Idaho, and he was the one that actually talked to Ray early on and identified, what we're calling a Gout now, and so he said, look, there's this little Idaho-based company, you should check them out. They look like they use your help, and that's how I was introduced. And obviously, lived in Costa Rica for the first few years while still working for American Pharma, but at some point it just made sense to come back. And honestly, I'm very happy that I did. I love Idaho now. I'm very outdoorsy. The access here is just crazy, so it's awesome.
Excellent. I am going to. Sorry, I brought up the journey to commercialization screen. You should still be able to see us in the general
One of the small screens.
video screens. Looking for any additional questions. We can find the window. Show chat. Yes, feel free to come off of mute. There's the compliance hurdles.
Bear claws.
Okay. Bear claws.
They are
are
very
They are
nice.
huge.
And they are nice.
Wait, I got it. So there's one that I want to just ask. You had funding issues, right? So you had a small Series A you mentioned. How's that been? Is that you guys been more self-funded than anything, right, Nick? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So our first round of funding, I'm forgetting exactly what year it was, or only round of funding actually. I think it was the third or fourth year of offering the service commercially, and it was very small. We've been primarily bootstrapped. So honestly, our Series A was like $150,000, and it was mostly to back pay our staff because they forewent salary compensation. And even throughout the life cycle of the company, even after we went through that small funding round, our staff have made a lot of sacrifices on the cash compensation front. We, for a while, our compensation strategy was portions of market salary. So we looked at, Boise market salary, and we said, okay, we can pay you this much of it. After revenues hit this number, we can pay you the next chunk. So it's definitely primarily bootstrapped. We had very, very little funding. Let's see, there's another question.
It says,
Do you have any difficulty sourcing materials and manufacturing locally at a competitive cost? That's a great question.
Yeah, it's a good question. So we do have out-of-state vendors that we work with for the parts and pieces, right? But it's the final assembly and most of the manufacturing occurs here in Boise. We do have some challenges sourcing. Like, we prefer to source things locally if we can. So we've looked at local companies, and my engineers are probably frowning because I forget the names. But we've looked at local companies first before we look out of state. We have had to source things from out of state, actually out of country on a couple of occasions. It's just kind of the nature of electronics. But honestly, Boise does have a lot of early stage manufacturing, like prototyping capability. So we've done a lot of our prototyping through companies here locally, and then worked with out of state vendors for final assembly components.
I got to say, I really did in the early days of PacSense. I really did appreciate the resources we have in the state. Contract manufacturer out in Nampa, their machine shops all over the place.
Yeah,
it is fantastic.
yeah, it's really cool.
Here.
Yeah, and it's cost competitive and everything too, so it's great.
And as part of our restart of Tech2Market, introducing those resources, I'm looking forward. Let me see if I can advance the slides. I'm looking forward to elevating some of those resources, so that more people across Idaho know that they exist, and that we can use them across Idaho. That's the other nice thing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful state. I see by the tiny clock on the upper right-hand corner of the screen that we've reached the bottom of the hour. So this is the point at which we promised to let you go. However, I must have spoken too much. There's another question at the bottom. What chip are you using on your device? What programming languages? Is there some general answer you can provide so as not to betray any secrets?
Yeah, definitely. So on our most recent device, we actually worked with an outside company who's provided an all-in-one chipset that includes, so this guy right here, that chipset includes access to the nationwide Cat1M network, which is the network that we connect to. It's a machine-to-machine network, but the chip is proprietary to a company called Link Labs, and they're not really staged, but they were one of the first adopters of the Cat1M protocol, and so we work with them to source those chips, and we of course design and develop the board ourselves that those chips sit on. But that would be the chipset that we're running right now. And then there's
Does all winner ARM or Xilinx?
Successfully sourcing locally dispels the myth that the U.S. cannot be competitive in electronics manufacturing. That is a true statement.
for sure. Yep.
Silicon Mountain Contracting Services is the place. That's a little plug for them. Place we used in Nampa, and competitive pricing, higher quality, faster turns.
Yep.
It's
All there.
phenomenal to use a local resource,
Yeah,
especially a good one like that.
we've used them for some of our prototype boards, so absolutely. And then let's see. Tell us about how to best deal with competitors using your IP. Ooh, that's actually an interesting question. We've really struggled with that. So we do have some patents that we've got, and we have competitors currently stepping on them because we're actually directly competing with our patented algorithms. And at our size, we actually haven't been able to confront them or push back on that in the marketplace. We have taken the marketing strategy of we were the first ones, and we're doing it better. We have higher, our algorithms are more accurate. Because we're the originators. When we iterate, we do it well. But we haven't had the cash horsepower to aggressively push back on that. And the market advantages, while they're there, they're not significant enough yet to where we're losing a bunch of our market share to those competitors. So that one was one we actually struggled with for a long time. We didn't know. We talked to legal advice. We got legal advice on when do we do that? When do we aggressively go after them? And it's frustrating to see other companies step on your patents and do nothing about it. But that's kind of the near-term approach we've taken.
Awesome.
It was just
That's it.
further diversion.
Yep.
Any other questions? We're checking the chat.
For the programming language, Ruby on Rails.
Nice.
Ruby.
Yeah. We just did a modernization to Rails 6, which was challenging.
He said on embedded? Question mark.
Link Labs.
On the Link Labs chip? No, that would be for our software side. I'm not sure what we used to write the firmware. I think it might have been C++, but the software side was Ruby on Rails.
And the Link Labs, I can't remember. That's a standard configuration. It's not an ARM.
I thought it was application specific, but I'd have to double check because it was pretty proprietary to them as a company. I'm sure they used something as a backbone, but I'm not sure.
Sure.
We find out.
Hey, Derek and Kaz and Nick, I want you to, I saw you had a dog on that, Nick.
Yes.
And I needed to I brought her in. This is Bella. She has a 10-year birthday today. So
Happy birthday, Bella.
Bella.
yeah,
He looks like you took her from Frasier.
yeah, that's it. She has the same, she's the same type of dog, Jack Russell. So anyway.
Awesome.
Nice. Yeah, mine's a bit younger, going on 6 months.
Oh, what a great dog. She looked like a great dog.
Love it.
All righty then. Well, if there are more questions, if you guys think of questions that pop up, please feel free to email us and let us know. And or contact Nick directly, because I'm just going to put them out there like that.
That's fine.
Coming up next, we have regional highlights next. Our regional highlights for next month. If Teresa and Dana are still on the line, I can't tell. Oh yeah, there you are. Hey Teresa, can I call on you just to say you guys can take turns. You can both come online at the same time. Just give us little highlights for what you guys are all up to out there and for next month.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. So Eastern Idaho, which covers Southeast and East Idaho, under Regional Economic Development for Eastern Idaho called READY, has seen significant regional growth over the past 2 years.
And I agree. I think that Eastern Idaho has a focus on energy, and it's something that has continued to transform our region and will continue into the future. some of the projects that we have in the pipeline for the coming 10 years are the first siting of the small modular reactor, support for development of commercial microreactors, and leadership for a versatile test reactor. So Eastern Idaho is really becoming the go-to place that can supply the energy industry with the talent, expertise, and infrastructure that they need to support national and global market needs.
Yes, along with energy, in particular nuclear, Southeast and East Idaho has also become a mega center for cybersecurity. From healthcare and banking to precision agriculture and advanced manufacturing, Eastern Idaho's companies are creating and using cybersecurity in ways to deploy their products and services that are transforming the landscape in Eastern Idaho.
Yeah, it sounds like it's transforming Eastern Idaho, all of Idaho, and the United States and the world.
Yeah. The FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, opened a new data center in Pocatello, Idaho, in our region. And then construction a few years ago of 2 new buildings in Idaho Falls really upped our cybersecurity presence as well. That was the Cyber Core Integration Center and the Collaborative Computing Center here in Idaho Falls. So we're working together to help support and secure that computing and communication device services so that we can support the national infrastructure from external cyber attacks.
So with all the exciting activities that have happened in our region, the large presence of 5 federal programs, which a lot of people, even those that live in Idaho, aren't aware that the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, Homeland Security, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the United States Navy are in our backyard. And so over the last year, Ready rolled out the East Idaho Entrepreneurship and Incubation Alliance. We refer to it as EI squared. Then Ready took a deep dive into several federal programs that support the development of new technologies that have commercial value, or as some may say, that can be commercialized. So the activity may involve a new technology developed in a garage or a basement of a regional entrepreneur. It may involve a partnership between an entrepreneur and one of our research institutions, such as our regional universities or at the Idaho National Lab. So our investigation of this activity over the last year really brought to light that we have a lag in activity in this area. And there was a need to develop a program to increase federal funding in support of these new ideas, not only in our region, but also across the state. So in May of 2020, a unique partnership developed between Ready and the state PTAC office and the Idaho Falls SPDC office. And together we sponsored the SBIR STTR Road Tour on August 10th and 11th. An event where federal funding program managers in DC stop at designated areas across the United States, which Idaho Falls is the designated area for Idaho. And these stops bring together agency decision makers. They connect entrepreneurs to additional resources to help their small businesses start and grow. The SBIR and STTR programs, they're highly competitive programs that encourage small business to engage in federal R&D with the potential for commercialization. And through competitive awards based on these programs, both of these programs enable small businesses to explore their technological potential and provide the incentive to profit from its commercialization. The STTR program is similar to the SBR program, whereas the STTR requires that small businesses formally collaborate with a research institution, such as a university or a federal lab. And the mission of the SBIR STTR program is to really support scientific excellence and technological innovation through the investment of federal research funds to build a strong national economy. But due to COVID, the August Road Tour was held virtually. It was one of the highest attended road tour events that Idaho has seen in years. Entrepreneurs could attend the event and meet with federal program managers virtually. So from that event, Ready took a deep dive on how well Idaho has done over the last 3 years in obtaining SBIR and STTR grant program funds under this program. And in particular, as part of the Rocky States, which consists of Utah, Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. Unfortunately, we've not done well. In fact, we found that Idaho ranks last in comparison with Utah ranking first, Montana ranking second, Wyoming in third, and of course, obtaining the highest grant funding in a single year. We instantly knew that this had to change, so Ready developed a white paper to form a statewide partnership that would involve multiple statewide Idaho organizations and begin to roll out the Idaho SBIR, STTR Virtual Innovation Center under a unified group referred to as Innovate Idaho. We created a hub and spoke model. The hub of the center is located in Idaho Falls under the direction of READY, PTAC, and SBDC. And the partners, which are considered the spokes, are strategically located across the state. So together, this partnership will assist to help mentor, train, and bring entrepreneurs and researchers to the table to remove those silos and work in partnership to develop a strong SBIR STTR program in Idaho and increase the number of proposals to meet the merits to receive SBIR STTR grant funding. So states that have built strong entrepreneurial ecosystems and structures to receive SBIR STTR grant funds are those that remove area borders and form strong partnerships to unite their strength and resources. So we're excited to share more about the Idaho SBIR STTR Virtual Innovation Center under Innovate Idaho and look forward to presenting at the April 16th Tech2Market event. We invite you to join us and to learn more.
We are
Thank
so
you.
excited to learn more about this.
You know, I was just gonna make a quick comment. This could have been something that Nick, that you could have optimized. I don't think you did SBIR loans, but that could have been up to like maybe $300,000 to $400,000 to develop the product originally, you know, when you did this. And it could be something that, I mean, this is the kind of opportunity, and you don't have to pay the money back. It's all stuff that comes directly to. So those are the things that I think Idaho could really take advantage of more. Thanks.
You're right, Jay. And they're non-dilutive funds. And so the federal government does not take any type of investment into, you know, you don't have to pay the funds back, but they don't own a certain percentage of, you know, the technology. It's clear.
Yeah, I'd love to check that out.
Yeah, it is one of the many resource opportunities we have here in the state of Idaho. And I can't recall if you mentioned the NIST and manufacturing, various federal level manufacturing projects and programs going on. Tech Help, Steve Hatton locally, supports that program as well and runs that. Looking forward to next month. Thank you guys. That's exciting.
That is exciting. I think it was great. In order to grow and knowing those resources exist is everything. So that's what we hope to bring to entrepreneurs in Idaho.
Yeah, and that Ready website, that's an awesome website.
Thank you. ReadyConnects.org, REDI.
Yeah, that's perfect. Cool.
Great. Anything else? Anybody online care to have an addition?
Thank you for joining us for our first reboot.
Yeah.
Tech2Market.
It looks like Christina put her email in the chat. If you guys have any suggestions or want us to focus on anything in particular, please email Christina or us, and we'll go from there. Nick, any parting words? We'll give you the clapperboard to end this.
I don't think so. You know, I think just closing comment, you know, a lot of these programs that were mentioned, you know, I think just getting exposure to, you know, companies like ours is everything. Idaho is a great space for that. Yeah, love it.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
And thanks, Jay, for bringing us together.
Thank you, Jay.
I think it's more important. Thanks, you guys. And that was Nick. That was wonderful. I loved finding out more about, you know, American Pharma and PharmaWatch. That was awesome.
Well, and David and Christina.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys very much.
Great job.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Take it easy. We'll see you later.
Have a great weekend, guys. Thanks.
Great weekend.
Bye. I have to figure out how to work the system now.
Bye.